Buckle up, everyone, and welcome to Carpool Rugby League, a show where two rugby league tragics talk everything rugby league on your way to and from work. I'm Shane.
And I am the Chameleon.
Welcome aboard and on with the show. Uh, Chameleon, great to have you on board yet again. Thanks for joining us this evening. I suppose we're going to get into the grab, and I'm not Nostradamus, but I could probably almost predict what your grab over the last couple of weeks has been. But Wembley, what was it like?
Yeah, well, it was an honor to be there. I when I heard that this tour was on, I thought, well, maybe I could go. And yeah, it's an impressive stadium, obviously, the new Wembley. I remember the old Wembley with the sort of the Twin Towers. Never got there, but see it on TV. But this one's got this sort of iconic arch, I guess you'd call it.
Yep.
And you can see that from some way away. So, I wasn't staying when I got back into London. I'd been in and out of London a few times, and I could see the arch, and it was pretty cool. Walked to the stadium from where I was staying that night, and it was pretty cool. On just before I got into the stadium, I met Sammy.
Can I just say, my mum is very jealous of you.
Okay.
She loves Sam Burgess, and when we showed her the picture, she was very envious of you.
Well, I look like one of those little primordial dwarfs next to him.
Look, not the primordial dwarf.
Not
Only
the
one
one,
person
no,
can look
but,
like that.
no one can look like that. But
Shout out to the doctor.
like the photo, I did look like a little dwarf next to him. I knew he was a big guy, but
Huge.
Towering over me. But yeah, so then I got into the stadium after that, and I was there reasonably early. It was just soaking up, looking at what is an iconic stadium, and I was sort of obviously surrounded by English fans. I was talking to quite a few of them, lovely people. The people I was talking to had come down from the north of England for the game.
Yep.
One guy from Cumbria, some other guys from York, and that was all good fun. The game itself was probably not. I was probably thinking I'm going to see a bit of a better game than what it turned out to be. Dominated pretty much by the Kangaroos, which wasn't unexpected. The first half, there weren't too many highlights. I was saying to the fellas around me, I said, look, first game, both teams are going to be better in games 2 and 3 because neither team had played a lead-up game. So, the Aussies strung some good play together in the second half and went on to win comfortably. There wasn't a great atmosphere. There was no singing or anything like that, which was disappointing. But I think for the English fans, they really needed their team to give them a bit of inspiration, just a bit of hope. Like they did create a couple of chances in the first half, but couldn't finish them off. Obviously Reece Walsh was great. Crichton Angus Crichton, the second rower, he was also very, very good. A couple of tries. Monster was good in the second half.
Yeah,
Harry Grant was good.
Great. Yeah.
I thought Cleary was good. He didn't set the world alight, but he just fed his outside
he
man.
did what he had to do.
Well.
He, like there's, I think Nathan Cleary, the representative Nathan Cleary, I think plays a different, has taught himself that he plays a different role. I actually thought his role was brilliant. I thought what he did, what he did was actually on point. And from a New South Wales perspective, I was happy to see it. Before I bring up a point about the game, what caught your eye this week?
Well, I'm thinking I'm going to say someone.
Maybe. Look, I maybe not. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've known you for a long time, Griffo. You sometimes think outside the square, and it's worthwhile when you do. It's.
Yeah, I'm going to Suncorp Stadium for the grab.
Yep.
I didn't see the game in its entirety. I saw some scores. I saw the halftime score, but I didn't know the result till I come home. And last night I watched the mini, and I was sort of quite not shocked because this guy has done it before, but the second rower for the Samoans, who's represented the Kangaroos in the past, Jeremiah Nene, he did a couple of things that were quite freakish. And as I said, this is not new territory for him. He's done it before, but from memory, he ran on to a kick that had been put through, gathered the kick in, used his strength to get over the line and get the ball down that not too many players could have done.
No, it was.
And then he backed that up a little later on. The Samoans looked like they were going to score out wide, but he sort of ran, and then he put a chip kick into the end goal. There were 5 Tongans there, but he just wanted it more. And 2 bits of brilliance from a second rower. And there's not too many second rowers, well, not too many players, actually, that could have come up with those 2 plays. So, Nene.
Yeah, I don't know.
He caught my eye.
No, Jeremiah Nene. I've after watching it on the weekend, I was thinking a little while ago. I was talking to some people about footy, and I said when he's on, he's almost like this utility player. Like he can be in the backs, he can be in the forwards, he can kick the ball, he can run the ball, he can defend. Like when he's in a mood, he can almost just cover across the field and do some pretty special things. That well deserved grab because he was definitely on the other day, and it's almost like he was. It's almost like in a previous life he was a seagull. Like if he fights for that last chip, like that's what we've seen when he plays. When he does that, he just does not give it up. So I think that's well deserved. Interestingly, you brought up about atmosphere and everything at Wembley. Peter V'landys during the week has more or less come out and said that the English Super League is in dire straits. English football needs an injection of something. He said he didn't say it as much as alluded that really the the national team needs to start playing, albeit maybe just NRL clubs, on a more consistent basis to try and get some I suppose try and get the skill development they need. I think what he's saying, and I think it's fair, is that at the moment the English national side, and you can talk about troops, of course that's important too, but if you're playing to Super League standards and that's as good as you need to be, well then you're not going to reach the dizzy heights of what it's like to play Australia or NRL standards. I think it's about time the NRL gets serious and make a pretty serious bid for English football. Was that the vibe you got, Griffo? That it's just I always say watching a game live is vastly different to TV, and even rugby league, where they go, oh, it's made for rugby league. You see the players, you see their positioning, you see where they're loitering, you see how long it takes them to get back. It seems to me that we've got this brilliant concept in the Ashes, and I'm glad they're going back there. And I've seen some fantastic games over the weekend. One coming up in Pacific Nation, the PNG versus Fiji, which I think that's going to be a cracking match. And I just think, well, after the weekend, are we going to be saying that the Australia versus England is going to be a cracking match? And if we're not, what needs to be done in English football to make it so? What was the vibe when you were there, Griff?
The people were, happy. Like, it was a big crowd. It was like 60,000.
Yeah,
but
it
was in a massive stadium.
Yeah.
So you would have seen a lot of empty seats. It holds 90,000. And there was, just a touch over 60,000. So it did look, whenever you see lots of empty seats, it just,
what? I think, I took that with a grain of salt. Like, it was the top tier.
Yeah.
And I actually had a discussion with someone on Monday. Was it Monday? Tuesday? Yesterday? One day, anyway. And they're like, oh, I said 60,000. I said, I actually question whether, if it was held in Australia, if Australia could get 60,000.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I'm more
talking. It was a record. Like, it was the biggest crowd they've ever had.
Oh yeah, I'm more talking about maybe Griffo, and I probably didn't. I didn't know. I'm talking more. Do the English fans deserve more out of English rugby league? Because it seems like they got the fans there. Like 60,000 is massive. Is it that Peter Volandi's idea of taking over Super League and getting more quality into England? I think it would be received well by the English fans. I think at the moment English football is playing to English standards, which is why we're getting the results that we're getting. Is that a fair comment, do you think?
Well, it's an opinion. I can't say it's right or wrong.
Oh, that's my opinion.
The reality is that rugby league is a small sport in the United Kingdom. It's played in a small section in the northern parts of England. It's virtually not played at all in London. I know they're trying to resurrect the London Broncos. They didn't get admitted to the top flight in the Super League for next year. They missed out, but they've got the consortium, which Darren Lockyer is part of. Jason Demetriou is going to coach the team. I think they've signed Regan Campbell-Gillard, Saliva Havili. They were hoping to be in the Super League, but not yet. They've been trying to get London viable for a few decades, and it just hasn't worked because it's a game that in the south of England, there's just little interest there. And obviously you can change that over time, but it takes time. They don't really have the talent base that we've got here.
No.
And that's just a reality. Like, we've been used to some great Englishmen coming out here, like Sam Burgess, going back to guys like Mal Reilly in the past, Kevin Ward, Ellery Hanley, Sean Edwards. There's been a plethora. James Graham more recently. We had Whitehead. We've got a host of Englishmen in the NRL at the moment, and the star really is Herbie Farnworth.
He's very good, isn't he? He's very good.
He is. Look, he's as good as anyone in the centres, I think. You say who's the world's best centre? Well, it could be him, could be Steve Crichton, but he's up there. He's in the top, 3 without doubt. So, but he's really the only superstar they've got in that side.
Which brings me to a point, Griffo. I think of Sam Burgess, who, everyone knows what my thoughts are on him. I look at Herbie Farnworth. I go back, and I'm going to pull a name here that's very old school in Ellery Hanley. Is it that, I know these people are exceptional rugby league players. Adrian Morley, when he wasn't suspended, very good, better than very good actually. Really good rugby league players, exceptional that in their time. Would it be worthwhile if the Landys did and the NRL did take over Super League, putting in some NRL systems and processes and getting them playing NRL clubs just to see what it's like? Like, I mentioned 3 players that are and 4 players that they're brilliant players. But there's a small part of me that says, would Sam Burgess have been as good if he didn't come to Australia? Would Herbie Farnworth be as good if he stayed in England?
No, they wouldn't.
No, and I just think that. But what can we do?
I can't be too critical because
to do that,
the money is not there.
That's true. That's very true. That's very true.
You are competing against football / soccer, what we call soccer.
Yeah.
And that just dominates. And that's the biggest league in the world, in the world game. And that's what they're up against. Now, obviously, the correlation between what makes a good soccer player and what makes a good rugby league player, they're different sports and different athletes to a large extent. But then you've also got rugby union, which is, the number 2 sport. I'm not including cricket because it's a completely different game. But
yeah,
as far as games where you've got a ball and no bat, rugby league is very much a
minority sport,
a small sport in that country. So, and union has a lot more money, and some players have been lost to rugby union over the last, since union went professional. So I can't really be critical. I mean, they're doing the best they can. And in the past, there was more money available, and they were able to attract more players. Their top teams are, competitive, can be competitive compared to NRL teams. And you watch a lot more Super League than what I do. I don't know that the NRL are looking to take over, but they've been asked by some of the big clubs to get involved.
Yeah.
And that would help the big clubs. The smaller clubs, not as keen because they know that they could be on the outer if the NRL does get involved, and because they would probably say, look, we've got to make some cuts to the number of teams so that we're going to increase the quality of the teams that are there and make it more competitive. Now, if you are a great rugby league player playing in the north of England, chances are you want to come and play in the best competition there is, and that's here.
Yep.
And obviously, as I said, we've got probably half a dozen or so at least now Englishmen, and I'm not including guys like AJ Brimson or Victor Radley, who are Australians who've pledged their loyalty. Yeah. That's completely different. Those guys were born, raised here, and went through the junior systems here in Australia. But if you're a great football player / soccer player, you're not going to spend your career in the A-League. You're going to go to the parts of the world where you can earn more money and be in the best competitions. So it's the flip side, for the Super League over in England. If you're that good, you're going to be sought out by NRL clubs, and you're going to go and want to test yourself against the best. So I really can't be critical. Anything that can be done to help the game out needs to be done. We saw, that they got the Super League teams involved in Las Vegas. That was, but I found that was a great success as far as I'm concerned. The supporters there were fantastic. So things like that, where they can get partnerships with the NRL, play double headers, that sort of thing.
Global round.
Well, I was going to get to that. Now, I've got a feeling Mr. Volandis might listen to Carpool Rugby League.
Well,
because
maybe.
We talked about this. I suggested this a couple of years ago.
Yeah. We're getting some traction, aren't we? There's some things we've said that all of a sudden pop up elsewhere.
Yeah. I should have had a word to him when I met him in Las Vegas earlier in the year.
Yes.
But anyway, look, it's for me. It's got to happen.
Oh yeah, I agree. Like,
to be successful now in the world, it's a business. All sport is business now. I think it's a great concept. As I said, we talked about it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
When the Vegas thing sort of was mooted and then got ticked, and I said, look, yeah, that's great, but really, we could make a whole round out of it, because 100%. The more eyes we get watching the game, the more money comes in and all that goes with it. And you then start to open new markets. You attract athletic talent to your game, and it grows.
Well, and the thing is, I think we spoke about this 2 years ago. Like for me, you look at it, well, okay, in Australia, there's so many million, 20, how many in Australia now? 27,
I think,
million people. So, you look at a percentage. If you could take the game to, and this is what, like my theory, I call it the Indian cricket theory. Why is Indian cricket massive? Because 1 billion people. Well, not 1 billion. That's a lie. Because out of 1 billion people, if 50% love the game, well then, 500 million people love cricket. And I think this is what we need to do with rugby league. When you take it globally, you go, well, okay, all of a sudden you're opening it up to other avenues. If in a population of how many million, you get 1%. And this is what Volandis was doing with America. If 5% of the population subscribe, well, that's awesome. If 1%, that's just as good. You take it to another 200, 300 million people, you only need 1% of them to subscribe. And the revenue is massive. And I think over here, I was having the chat to someone about Global Round. I said, oh, that's stupid. And I said, it's not stupid. I'll tell you why. In Australia, to get a game pass for NFL, is astronomically expensive. It is nuts. I can't afford it. I used to have it, and I can't afford it anymore. It's just beyond my bank budget, and which is great because the Miami Dolphins aren't doing that great anyway. They never do. But that's another story. But the thing is that if you look at the statistics of people who have the Game Pass in Australia, it's pretty big. But you add to that the people who are buying Fox to get ESPN because ESPN have it. People buying KO to get it. So people buying KO. The thing, it's this associated web of kickbacks that all of a sudden makes the NRL worth way more. And I think what they're doing, as far as TV deals, like once you're on a platform or a channel that can go globally, that's huge. And I think this is where it's at for the NRL. I applaud it. I think it's a great thing. Just back to England. I was someone said to me, "What's England football got to do?" And I went back to and Australia hates this guy because he used to always call for a runner, but the good old Ratatunga. But more Dave Watmore, and his coaching of the Sri Lankan team in the '90s that won the World Cup. And one of the things he did was he encouraged wholeheartedly his players to go to England to play cricket. Don't hang around in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka's a lovely place, but if you want to play cricket, you've got to go globally. You've got to leave here because when you come back and play for your country, the quality you're going to have, and I remember Jay Surya of the time, Kaluwitharana, they would never have gotten picked in old school Sri Lankan teams, but because they were known in England, because they were known globally, they got picked, and I think that's where England football's at. Should we talk about some games, Griffo?
Sure.
Sounds like a plan. All right, so I suppose where's my screen gone? This is let's see. There we go. Okay, so look, there's been a raft of internationals. I'm just going to go through some. I'm just going to go through some of the results. So PNG Prime Minister's 13 versus Australia's Prime Minister 13. 28-10. That was a pretty interesting. That was a pretty entertaining game actually. Pacific Nations Championships. Now we haven't been on here for a while, so I'm just going to take you through a couple of rounds. So in round one, Fiji beat Cook Islands 44-24. Kiwis beat Samoa 24-18. That was a frag closer than what I thought it might be. The Kumals they won 40-28 over Cook Island. They look very good. Tonga, this is I've actually met a couple of Tongans in the last week, and they can't even talk about this game. That hurt so much. Tonga 6, Samoa 34. I suppose we'll jump into round 3, which is on the 1st of November on Saturday. A game I'm looking forward to: PNG versus Fiji, and then the Kiwis versus Tonga. Griffo, any thoughts on these matches coming up? Any observations?
Excuse me, sorry. I'm just trying to find the teams here. So we've got the Kumals up against the Bharti. Now,
I'm looking forward to this game.
This is 4:00 Saturday. Yeah, well, could go either way. Both teams have got a sprinkling of NRL talent. Well, maybe a bit more than that. That's probably understating it. I'm thinking they should just make it the final because
Yeah.
they've both qualified. They both beat the Cook Islands. They're going to play this game, and it really doesn't matter
Yeah.
because they'll play again the final next week in the final. So, yeah, if I was either team, I would be maybe leaving out some of the stars and saying, look, we're just going to keep you for next week. I'm not sure if either team's really done that. There's no kick out, there's no Coruscant for the Fiji team. I don't know if they're injured or what it is there, but they're not in this tournament. You put those two guys into the Fijian team, and I'm pretty sure they'd come up with a win. But it's obviously relatively even. They're playing in Port Moresby. Yeah, could go either way. I don't know a lot about a number of the players in both teams, but in the PNG team, current NRL regular first graders, you've got Alex Johnson from the Rabbitohs, Jack DeBellin. They're the only regular NRL players. There's a number of others who are with NRL clubs. Zach Labour, the winger played last week. He's on the extended bench. Robert Darby. Our friend Jacob Winky, he's on an extended bench as well. So some of the guys have got there ahead of them. Obviously, must be decent. I know there's huge raps on the hooker Edwin Apape, who plays for the Lee Leopards, and they're saying that he should be the first bloke signed for the PNG team when it comes into the NRL. He's a hooker. Not seen a lot of him play, but he's very, very highly rated. There's a few ex-NRL guys there like Reece Martin, Nene McDonald. But yeah, the other guys, I don't know a lot about them. The Fiji team, they got Buller at fullback, Sunia Taruva on the wing as regular starters. Semi Valame's played a lot of NRL. Donohue's been very good with the Dolphins this year. Big Tui, regular at the Storm. Sadly, dropped the ball over the line in what would have wrapped up the grand final, but not to be. And that's it as far as regular players go. There's Tane Milne, who's played a number of NRL games, some of them well and some of them not so well, but he's in the second row. Navali, the lock, is Manly. Hasn't played a lot of first grade, but he's got big raps on him. It's toss of a coin because I really don't know. I'll just say PNG because that's where they're playing.
I'm the same. On the Pacific Championships, the Kiwis are in second play. Tonga, who was in third. I suppose looking at these two sides, Tonga probably hasn't come out with the venom most Tongan fans would have hoped for. Kiwis, they seem to just want to win this and do well. It's funny when reading the Kiwi narrative over the last few weeks. This matters, and I love what their coach said. This isn't about this. These aren't throwaways. These matter. Every game you play when you've got your jersey on, it matters, and they're playing it that way. When you look down the Kiwi side, it's just littered with NRL talent, and a guy I'm looking forward to. I just love him, Casey McLean. And you would have seen a lot of Casey Griffo. I just think he's he's one of the class centres at the moment, and playing some phenomenal football. I really think that a game like this is made for him. Interestingly, the other person wearing number 4 on the other side is Paul Alamotti. But looking at these sides, Kiwis look good.
Yeah, they won their first game. They're obviously missing a few players from what their best side would be, but it's, Jerome
Mulatano
Hughes would lead that.
I suppose Ronaldo Mulatano bigger
it's ACL,
implications for the
massive.
Sharks. That's they're talking season gone.
Well, it's usually a 9 to 12 month injury.
Yep.
I expect we'll see him back late in the season, but they do have a very capable guy in Stone Street that they'll be able to have there in place of Mulatalo. But he's very important to the Sharks.
And Marshall King out.
As far as Marshall King is a loss for the Kiwis. I don't know the extent of his injury, whether he'll be back, assuming they make the final. Tonga they've got to win by 17, which would require a massive turnaround from what we saw last weekend. They could win the game. I don't know if they can win by 17 though. I'm going to tip the Kiwis here. They've got some very talented backs there. You mentioned McLean. Chris comes in for Mulatalo. Chris is a very good player from the Raiders.
Yeah.
Dylan Brown, from what reports were, he was the best player on the field in their last game. Then it's a strong forward pack with Fisher Harris, Leota, Britton Ikara, Papali'i, and Joe Tarpany. And then you bring the likes on of Nafahu White, Xavier Willison, and Aaron Clark. It's a pretty strong pack. Up against it, I know there was a strong pack. Taumalolo missed last week's game. They're going to want to improve significantly, but they got the players to do it. I just can't see them. Well, I can see them possibly winning the Tongans, but I can't see them winning by enough to make the final.
Nah, I agree. So, Pacific Nation Championships, that's the I suppose that's the next game for that. Sorry, I just got to go up on the screen here. Looking at the next game in Liverpool, England versus the Kangaroos. I suppose team lists for England are not out yet. It's on the 2nd of November, 1:30 a.m. I suppose team lists aside, like I know Isaiah Yeo is out, heavily concussed in the first game. So Patrick Carrigan will come in for him. The other thing, Mitchell Moses is named at number 20. Bradman Best, Jacob Preston make their way in. I suppose, Griffo, the big question is, what's England got to do to take it to Australia, and what do the Kangaroos need to do for business as usual?
Well, I'm sure England will be an improved team from what we saw in the first game, but the problem for England is Australia will improve as well. And I just don't think that the talent is there for the English at the moment. They've got a few decent players, but if you went through from 1 to 17 and you said, which player is the best number 1, it's going to be the Australian, which is the best number 2. And I think there's probably maybe only Herbie Farnworth, to be fair, that if you're looking at the best of, I think he up against his opposition centre, he'd be better. Whether it be Shibasaki or Katoni Staggs, I think he's better than both of those guys. But I think he's the only one, and that's not enough. I'm sure that they'll get plenty of support from a packed Everton Stadium, Liverpool.
Keen to look at it. I love the look of this stadium.
Yeah, that's certainly they've got great stadiums over there. Tottenham Hotspur, I went there for a football game. Spurs playing Aston Villa. It's top notch, that joint. 60,000 people, not a bad seat in the house. And right throughout the UK, obviously, with Arsenal, have got the Emirates Stadium. You've got Wembley in London as well. You've got the Olympic Stadium in London. You've got in Manchester. You've got Manchester City's ground is fabulous, as well as Old Trafford. Yeah, they've got plenty of good stadiums there. But unfortunately, I think the majority of people from the Everton Stadium are going to go home a little bit disappointed again. But I think and it's probably not the best thing I can say, but if they think that their teams had a real crack and tested the Australians, then they probably won't be too disappointed.
No.
I don't think too many of them would realistically expect the English to get the game, but if they can challenge all the way, then the supporters will feel as though, they've done their best and they're up against a team chock full of superstars.
Yeah, that's very true. I one of the things I look at, I suppose you can always, looking at the game, if there's anything to say to England, it was they gave Reece Walsh easy ball. Like, I know you got Marky Mark and O'Carr, but really kicking to corners in rugby league is an important thing to do, and I think that they went away from that because they were a bit unsure about what was going to happen, and it gave Reece Walsh sort of this open field to play with. If you can find the grass and hit the corners, all of a sudden it makes the forwards go back. And I suppose if there's something from, if there was an observation from last game, was that the forwards never really had to turn around and run 40 metres back to get onside and do a hit up. And I think that for me, that simple, that sort of working on that kicking game is something they can, is something that I think that's something that if they were to do that, all of a sudden the ledger becomes a lot closer. And I love watching international football. I don't know what it is, but I really do love watching it. Another thing I'd like to see, and I just AJ Brimson. Like, I'd just have him in there, like someone you can bring on. Just tell him to reap havoc. You're not probably going to win the forward battle anyway, so why not bring someone on that could surprise you 50 metres and 60 metres at a time, could come on and he's played NRL football. Get the person out there that's played some top-notch football and see how it goes. Griffo, any closing thoughts, observations on rugby league in general at this point in time?
No, I think we're seeing in this country, and New Zealand, competitive high quality games. Although obviously the Samoans on the scoreboard won pretty easily, but I think it's time that they said that Tonga and Samoa are the equal of the so-called Team A teams. And
wow, I wish this is one podcast I'd listened to in the past. All right, it's true, isn't it? We've brought this up so often, and I agree with you.
And I've said it. I've got no problem with these guys going and playing for the country that that is the choice for them, for their heritage. That's fine, but no origin.
No origin. Yeah, we've said that.
How can you say to someone like Casey McLean, well, yeah, you'd probably make New South Wales, if not next year, then maybe the year after.
I rate him highly.
You play for the Kiwis, so you can't play.
Yep.
But Stephen Crichton, well, you play for Samoa, so you can play for New South Wales as well. That's just ridiculous.
My biggest argument was years ago when this sort of all got touted. I said, imagine if New South Wales could have drawn on Sam Burgess as their lock. How much would the game have changed then? And then you could go, well, on the flip side, could Benji Marshall have played for Queensland? And people, and at the time people said I was being silly, and I said I'm not, because what we've done is we've worked hard as a competition to make these international. And look, I remember the very. I'm not going to say it was the very first one because I can't bank on that. But geez, it was one of the first ones at Penrith Park, Samoa Tonga.
Yeah,
it was huge. I remember going because I remember hearing, and this is I don't know, I can't remember how long ago this was now, but someone said to me, someone who knew someone that worked for Penrith goes, "This thing's going to be a sellout." I went, no, and I bought a ticket. On that, and I thought, here's me thinking, I'm going to be walking in and there's going to be 6 of us. And it was huge. And I thought to myself then, if the quality of football improves for these guys, as it has, they're top tier rugby league nations, in my opinion. When you make the final of a rugby league World Cup, you automatically negate whether you're a second tier team. I wholeheartedly and have always wholeheartedly agreed with you, Griffo, that the Samoa Tonga teams are tier 1 rugby league nations. Choose your allegiance and stick with it, because there's a bit of I can have my cake and eat it too. And where I really feel for is our New Zealand and British brothers and sisters in this regard, who go, no, I'm playing for the, I could have allegiance to either one, or I could, no, I'm sticking with my allegiance, and what it causes, what it does, is it really. It's the middle finger to those guys, to those people who have said, I'm committing to a tier 1 team because I was born there.
Yeah.
Because I have an allegiance to that team. Look, I go for, a lot of people know I follow Dutch football fairly closely, and one day I'll see the national side hopefully win a World Cup in my lifetime. But I also know there's a lot of the national team that may not have been born in I won't say Holland, in the Netherlands. Sorry, I'll say it in English now. In the Netherlands, who play for the Dutch national team because that's that's where they grew up. That's where they live. That's where they reside. That's where they want to pledge their allegiance. And yes, some of those pledge their allegiance to the Dutch national team because if they pledged their allegiance to the place where they were born, they wouldn't play World Cups. And that's the way it is. I think that's a bit of this, if you want to, if you stick, you pick and stick. And if you want to change, it's a very lengthy process to change.
Yep.
And if the thing that's getting me a bit frustrated, Griffo, and we spoke about this a few weeks ago, so I'm not going to harp on it, is this whole idea that if I'm in the back end of my career, I can go from Australia to Samoa. I've done all the things I needed to do, and look, I'm going to mention money here because I think it needs to be mentioned. I've cashed in on my bonuses of playing for Australia and playing for the Blues, all Queensland. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play for one of these teams because they're a second tier team, and I'm still an international, and I still get to cash in on that. And I feel like saying, well, like these international teams are paying you money, but where were you when they needed you in your prime? If you're not willing to play for a club, if you're not willing to play for your country in your prime, don't play for them. Don't be the second-rate rugby league player that puts their hand up and thinks they're mentoring a whole group of young players. You're just looking at another international. It's probably in your contract with your club that if you play international football, you get a bonus. I hate that. It really sits unfair with me. If you put your allegiance to Australia and you can't make it anymore, then so be it. Do not put your hand up for another country and then get the cash grab that goes with it. That's what frustrates me. And I've got a gut feeling a lot of this stems from that. Pick and stick to begin with. If anyone asks me who I go for, what country I go for in football or in soccer, I go for Holland. Because since I was born, that's the country I've known to go for. I grew up here, I live here, yes, but there's something inside me that says that that's the country I go for. I don't know why, I don't know how. My grandfather, he instilled it in us, and I will wear orange till the cows come home.
You look good in orange.
Yeah. But the thing is this, Griffo, I'll never be good enough to have a choice, but if someone said to me, Shane, you got a choice, I'd pick and stick. I wouldn't play for one and then when all of a sudden because they got, and then change because
you've only got one heart, haven't you?
Yeah, that's it. And it's just like, I don't know how it works. Like Griffo, you're like me, mate. When people go, what's your second favourite team? I don't freaking have one. I've never had one.
Yeah.
I go for the Bunnies and that's it. When I got kicked out, I didn't watch the game. And I didn't watch it for a good reason. Because I'll go for one team and that's it. In rugby league, I'll go for the Kangaroos. That's it. I don't want to see them lose. I want to see a close game. But this is the thing. I don't understand how all of a sudden we can say, oh, I'm going to now play. And for me, it's a pure cash grab. It's this idea that if I'm an international, I get a $40,000 bonus from my contract. Because I'm an international. I've taken my cake and eaten it too. I've probably played for the Kangaroos. I've played State of Origin. That's got to stop. Because you know what? It's offensive to those players who go, you know what? I'm playing for my country. I'm playing for New Zealand. I'm playing for England. I'm playing for Tonga. And this is what we forget. There are players who have forfeited Origin because they've said this type of stuff. And I think it's about time Tonga and Samoa in that group. Yeah, I'm a $2 lawnmower with this. I only stop when the petrol runs out, but it just frustrates me that how can you commit to one once upon a time, and then backflip and go to another? For me, that's for the cash, and you know what? I've never, ever, ever been good enough to represent my country or represent my heritage in anything. And you know, I've never been good at sport, but geez, you know what? The last thing I'll do is use my or utilize my heritage because my contract says if I'm an international, I get 40 grand a year.
Mm.
I think, you know, if Volandis, if he wants to pick something, this is it, in my opinion. And I'll stop now because I've had to say enough.
There's some, probably just quickly, some key signings.
Yeah.
That have taken place.
Talk about it.
Reached November 1 yet, but your club.
Yeah.
With the signing of former Gold Coast, now second rower, David Fifita.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Shane?
Far out. Okay. I think back to when South Sydney, since 71, have been at their best. And the 2 years, or the 2 eras I can think of, is the mid 90s, where they, so mid to late 90s, where they were minor premiers. They in 84 beat Manly, 85 beat Manly. You know, they'd had some success. That success waned dramatically when everyone left the club. Fast forward to 2014. 2012 when Madge took over, and we did well then. And then when Bennett took us to the grand final, where we were beaten by the great Penrith team. The one common thread for those teams since 70, and I want to go back to the 70s, it's a different game. Because the 70s was about juniors. South Sydney developed and believed in a junior system that created players that came through and played football for South Sydney. Since the new world order at South Sydney, and look, I'm not going to harp on their board or their CEO. I think the fact they got a job there is astronomically bewildering to me. We're buying players for reasons best known to South Sydney. South Sydney have chased Fifita, if you believe all the background noise, for 1.5 years. 1.5 years. They've heard he was unhappy. Let's put the feelers out. So South Sydney buy David Fifita in a team that has Jai Arrow and Keon Kolamatangi. You know, in a team that has Cameron Murray at lock, Tavita Totola, who's been, I suppose, on and off. My question is, look, David Fifita in the highlights reel, yes, I'd buy him in a heartbeat, but far out. Show me an hour-long highlights reel in a Titans jersey. I applaud anyone that puts on the red and green, and I will follow you till the cows come home. And I welcome him to the South Sydney family, and I hope he has a wonderful time here at South Sydney. The only silver lining this signing has for me is that he's under Wayne Bennett, and that could mean something different. I don't know what, but it could mean something different. Yeah, I just question why, you know, and look, to be fair and honest to South, they're not paying a lot for him. And there's a lot of money being kicked by the Gold Coast to South Sydney for him. But yeah, like look at our recruitment over the past couple of years. Lewis Dodd was an absolute shambles. We really are struggling. We've got to start finding. We've got to start finding our next 5'8", which really hasn't been on the horizon, and we're now looking at our junior base in a world where the North Sydney Bears are entering in. We've signed some promising juniors, but I excited that we signed him. Not really. Am I thinking that the prospect of him at his best could help South Sydney? Most definitely. I would want to see David Fifita at his damaging best. I just haven't seen it for such a long time. I've forgotten what it looks like. That's my thoughts on David Fifita.
Yeah, they seem to like these project signings. Last year it was Schuster, and there's been others. The Dodd thing was a debacle. Pay a lot of money, don't play him. Basically, he didn't really see much first grade at all. Even though they had injuries in the halves. But Fifita, as you said, it seems as though they're not paying a lot for him because the Gold Coast are kicking in a significant amount.
He's 1 of 30 though, and that's what bothers me. Is that who's not now that one that could? Yeah, I'll say it now. I think Blake Solly, the fact that he's got a job at South Sydney bewilders me. I think that guy's had that many clangers during his tenure. They fixed up a lot of the membership debacle, which is good, though, and this year it's very seamless, which was good. But overall, I think it's been pretty poor. And it's going to kill me to say this because I actually really admired him when he was a player and as a South Sydney, as a head of football, I thought he was brilliant. Was Mark Ellison. I think his role in recruitment hasn't been that great. To be fair, we've had Humphreys and Hubner that we've bought that have done some very good things for us. But in saying that, when Mark Hughes was part of South Sydney, his whole mantra was we're building juniors and we buy to complement that. And when you look at that had players like Isaac Luke come to the club. It had players like Sam Burgess come to the club. In his idea of complementing players, he had an under-20 side who he kept and nurtured. Had players like Adam Reynolds. It was just Jason Clark was the captain of that side. Dylan Walker. Recruitment of Kirasami Avara. They were players who, you could argue got a bit too big for their boots. Later on included people like Angus Crichton, John Sutton. It was Alex Johnson. Got numerous offers and was convinced and he convinced him to stay. I just want to know what he's going to do. South Sydney need a guy because they've got Keon Kolamatangi who's going to run 150, 200 metres and make 30 tackles. Jai Arrow makes 150, 200 metres and makes 35 tackles. They need a guy to come off the bench and do the same. 3 flick passes and a knock on is not that. And I know I'm generalising, but I just I'm actually very keen. I'm going to go down. Um, I'm going to go down there probably in January and watch them train because I'm very
Yeah.
keen to see what shape and form this all takes because I just don't know. And I know Bennett's come out and said that Latrell Mitchell will not be fullback next year. Well, no shit, Sherlock. You had Jai Gray absolutely tear it up for a Prime Minister's 13 at fullback. Like have a think about it. And I think that Wayne's actually starting to think he's starting to look a bit foolish by some of the things that's happening at this club. And yeah, I've got Jack Whiten. Where's Jack Whiten playing now? If we've got one centre, where's Campbell Graham playing? Um, where's Walker playing? You just got abundance of people and projects that just are just taking up space. There's a small part of me that says really, for South Sydney to look at success, long term success, it's almost like you got to clear the decks now and build it now. And in some ways, I'd be happy to take on the Gould Panthers model, where he said, he cleared the decks and it took 10 years, but far out. Quite a few grand finals in that. There's quite a few grand finals at the end of that. I just can't see that for South. I just don't get it. Anyway, I've talked enough. That's yeah. I've talked enough.
Yeah, look, I think I think it could work. There's not a lot of risk when you're not taking up a huge amount of your cap. So
No.
jury's out, but see what happens. The interesting one, Jonah Pezzett has left the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah.
Will play a season at Parramatta and then head to the Broncos, I think, for 2 or 3 years. So,
good get for Para.
I think so.
I think it's a great
Some are
get for
critical of the fact that they're signing a guy for 1 year, but he's a guy who is ready. He's proved himself when he's had the opportunities at Melbourne, including in semi-final football. So I think that really Para is starting to look like
They're a more dangerous
they
side
could
now. Yeah.
do something next year. The Moses Pezzett combination will give them, I believe, the best kicking game of a 6 and 7 combination of any team in the NRL.
Close to the line, they're going to be. Yeah, I agree with you. And close to the line, I think they're going to be. Yeah, I think Parramatta have firmed. They're.
I think they're going to expect to make the 8 now.
They're in the 8. If they
disappointed
don't
if
make
they
the
don't
8
make
with
it.
this, I think that's
Yeah, it's been a good turnaround for them because they were heading towards the bottom and they've signed a lot of young players. They had success. They brought in Dylan Walker as well, who was very good for them. So I think it's a good signing for Para, even though it's not long term. But I think it's an even more important signing for the Broncos. He will replace Adam Reynolds in the number 7 jersey.
Yeah.
And they're looking at sustained success in Brisbane. And he's going to be front and center with that.
He's going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, he'll be in his prime. He'll be getting towards his prime. By the time he lands in Brisbane, he served a long apprenticeship at the Storm.
And
he's only going to get better at Para, and then I think he'll be about 25 when he lands in Brisbane.
The thing for me at Para with Jason Riles, he'll support the systems and processes. That's important. Like that's another key thing. Like, he's he's not there to root spiders, so to speak. It's going to be a real. He's there for real success. That's what's in it, and I think that's what Jason Roll needs is someone from outside from a really successful club who goes, no, 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 no. I'm not here. I'm not here to stuff around. I'm here to win. And I think that, like, I actually think Jason Riles will be cheering at having this guy there. I think Parramatta has firmed dramatically for the 8.
Yeah, they'll be disappointed if they don't make the 8.
Yeah.
We saw at the end of the season they finished really well.
Yep.
And he's going to improve the team, so they look okay. The other, I think, not quite as big a signing, but I think an important one is Sandon Smith has ended up at the Newcastle Knights.
Yeah.
Now, they've got a potential backline of Ponga, Dom Young on the wing with Fletcher Sharp on the other wing, Bradman Best, Dane Gagai, Dylan Brown, Sandon Smith. They had trouble scoring points this year.
All of a sudden, that looks a bit more dynamic, doesn't it?
It looks all right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And we shall see, but I think it's a good signing for them.
I think it's a great signing for them. I think that that's a really smart move by the Novocastrians to do that. It's funny. I was listening to one of the radio channels. It might have even been digital, and they were sort of going, "Oh, why would Newcastle bother?" And I'm thinking, why wouldn't they? Like, I think this is just the, like, Newcastle needs some new injection of talent, of ideas, of processes. Sandon Smith comes from one of the great organisations in rugby league. Why wouldn't you? If you could pick his brain and say, what do they do? You automatically he's paying for himself, and he hasn't played a game yet. I think it's smart. I think it's a really good sign.
Yes. So, he's joining coach from the Roosters, Justin Holbrook. So Holbrook will have worked closely with him, and he would have had a role to play in the signing. If he didn't think he was any good, he wouldn't.
No,
he wouldn't
most
have got
definitely. I'd say he was on the radar.
Yeah.
Well, Griffo, thank you very much for being part of the podcast.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for listening.
More international football coming up.
Yeah, we'll probably go around again next week.
I think so. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks for being a part of it. International football, in a time where too much rugby league, as Roy would say, is never enough. Take care, everyone. Have a good week, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.
Bye-bye.